Hello everyone, this is Tom Morley from T3D. This video is going to be about getting to know the Godot game engine user interface. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. Open up your Godot folder and fire up the engine. We'll create a new project. We'll make sure it's in our projects folder, and we'll create a new folder, and this new folder will just name that new folder UI. Click open. Default project name will be UI for our user interface tutorial. That's fine. Click create and open it up. I have some screencast keys down here so that you can see exactly what I'm clicking on or what buttons I'm using. So let's start at the top of the user interface here and look at the scene menu. The scene menu is where you will create new scenes, open a scene, save a scene as if you want to create another copy of a scene. The project settings are in here. They're pretty important. In this area you'll be able to change a lot of aspects of how your application is going to behave, as well as maybe change the width and height of your display when you run your particular application. If we want to go back to the project manager, we'll hit the scene menu and go down to quit to project list. So we'll go on to the next. The import menu is where we will import all aspects of the source material that we'll use for our particular applications. So if you need to import 2D textures, 3D textures, whole scenes, as well as if we want to import a 3D object, fonts as well, and audio samples. All that will be done under the import menu. Of course, we've used this in the previous tutorial. If we want to export an application to a particular device or operating system, we would do that under the export menu and just select the environment that we want to export our projects to. We have the play the project button. We saw in the previous tutorial that if we click on that button and we've never saved a scene, we'll get a warning saying that we've never saved the scene before. So we'll have to save it before we can actually run it. If we want to stop a running application, we just click on the stop the scene button. If we want to play the current scene that we're working on, then we can click on this button right here. Again, if I click on it and I've never saved the scene, it's going to say no scene to run exists. That's because I haven't saved the scene yet. Play custom scene. If we'll see, get into more detail on this particular item in future videos. If we have multiple scenes loaded, we can play a particular scene other than the one we're editing using that menu there. And serve the project file system to remote clients. If we want to basically share our files, this is a section where we can share our files back and forth with other individuals. And last but not least, on the top here we have the settings menu, and this is where we can change different aspects of the game engine itself. Like if we want to change the background color for the text or the foreground color, we can change a lot of those settings in this area here, and we'll probably do that in some of the future videos. I like a little bit better contrast in the text editor, and I'll show you how to set that up. By default, when you open a project using the Godot game engine, it defaults to the 3D tab. So we'll click on the 2D tab here and go through the button items here. The first item here is the select mode. You can do multiple behaviors depending on which keys you are pressing down. So if you want to rotate your object, then you would hold down the control key while you're dragging. If you want to move one of your objects, you can hold down the alt key while you're dragging. Also, you can change the pivot point of a particular object in your environment by pressing the V key while you're dragging your image around, and we'll see how to do that in the future videos. If we want to just move an item on our screen, we can click on that icon, rotate, that one here. The hand icon, if we want to pan our screen around, you can click on the hand icon, left click, and you can pan the screen around. By default, this is set up in our XY coordinates with 0.0 in our 2D environment being here at the cross section. This light blue line that goes around here is the display area of our application, and we can change that again by going into the scene menu and changing the height and width in our project settings, and you'll see that right here. You'll see that our width is 800 and our height is 600. So if we wanted it larger, we could change that in there. We have a lock selected objects in place, so if we get objects where we want them on our screen, we can lock them in place so that we don't accidentally move them, and of course this unlocks them. This button here makes sure that all of the children of a particular object are not selectable, and that'll become important later on when we're creating our actual games and you're dealing with multiple children underneath a parent. It'll be kind of important to lock all those children down so that you don't accidentally select them and move them around. Of course, if you want to select them and move them around, once you've locked them down, then you can make them selectable again by clicking on that button here. The edit menu allows you to snap to grid and some other things as far as selection, and also allows you to create bones for animation and making IK chains and clearing them as well. The view, that's going to allow us to change all aspects of the view, zoom in, zoom out, center on selection, and so forth. So let's click on the 3D tab, and you'll see that some of the same buttons exist here. If we want to select an object, then we'd click on that one. If we want to move an object, click on that one. Rotate is this button here. If we want to scale a particular object in the screen, then we'll click on that button. This blue plus sign is the Omega 13 button. We're not quite sure what that does. You click on it, we could go back in time, or we could blow up the galaxy. I don't know. Just kidding. I talked with the developers, and because this is a beta version of the engine, this plus sign used to be used for adding nodes to the scene, but we do that now over in the scene editor. So this plus sign will be eliminated from the next version of the Godot game engine. Right now it doesn't do anything if you click it. Transform, again, you can use snap. It's for aligning things to the grid in your 3D environment. And the view menu, this is one that is going to come in very handy. If we need more than one viewport, then you click on view and we can split it up into multiple viewports. If you're used to Lightwave, you would be very familiar with the 4 viewports. So if we click on that, you'll see that it's created 4 viewports. If we hold down the middle mouse button, you can basically maneuver around the 3D environment with your middle mouse button down. And in Lightwave, you're used to seeing a perspective. This one is usually top. This one here would be front, I believe, and this one might be left. So that you have the different views, and also have your perspective view up here in the corner. So you can basically customize this to whatever you need. Again, hold down the middle mouse button and you can scroll around in the 3D environment here. The script tab, if you're creating a script for any of your nodes, the script would show up in this tab. And the almighty help tab. It's pretty cool what they've done with this engine. Is they've basically given you access to all the different nodes that are available in the engine itself and organize them in a nice neat structure underneath the help tab. Underneath the search classes, you'll see that all the nodes are basically in color categories. You'll see a green section, you'll see a blue section, an orange section. So the green section has to do with anything that's a part of the user interface. So if you wanted a label, for instance, a label would be in the green section, as well as a pop-up menu, checkbox, anything to do with a GUI. So if you click on these nodes, you'll see all the aspects that are available to be used in each individual node. So under label, these will be some of the variables and methods that are available underneath the label. So anything GUI based is in green here. So let's minimize the control group, and we'll look at the next group, and we'll see that the next group is all basically 2D nodes. So if we're creating a game or an application that's going to be specifically 2D, then we'll want to use the nodes that are underneath the blue section here. And we also have an orange section, and underneath the orange section, that will have all of your nodes that are relating to the 3D section of our Godot engine. So we've got our GUI green, we've got our 2D nodes in blue, and our 3D nodes in orange. And there are a few extra nodes underneath the different color categories, and we'll probably be using the sample player, the stream player for music, and timer. Of course, we've got to have a timer in some of the games that we're going to create in future videos. So it's pretty cool what they've done. They've basically put everything into groups for you, so that it's easy for you to get to the section that you need and look for the node that you think might be important for you to use in your application underneath the help tab. So that's some pretty cool stuff. So now let's talk about this right hand section here, and we have the scene tab and the resources tab. So once we start creating resources in our game, you'll see this tab start filling up with the different resources. Probably have most of your time in the scene section here. If we want to create a new node, then we just click on this add or create a new node, and we're in the 2D environment. So let's just add a 2D node here. We know that the 2D nodes are not in the green area. The green area is for GUIs. The blue area is for the 2D nodes. You'll see most people that use this engine create a root node at the very beginning. So we'll create a root node, which will be our node 2D at the top, and we're just going to rename that to our UI root. We'll add that node in there. You'll see that it created the node at the coordinates 0, 0. Now with our root selected, we're going to, let's just add a sprite so that we can see something. We'll click on create a new node, and we'll go into the blue section and scroll down until we see a sprite here. Double click on that and put it into the scene. We don't really see anything right now because it's just that small dot. So let's load a texture into the sprite so that we can actually see it. And that will allow us to talk a little bit about the inspector section down here. The inspector is going to make available all of the variables and methods that have been made public to the engine, for lack of a better word, I guess. So if we want to change the texture of our sprite, we can go down here into the inspector, and under texture we can click on the down arrow where it says no, and we can load up a new image. When we click load, the default icon is right there. We can use that. We'll double click on it and load it. Now you'll see that the sprite has actually been created at the 0, 0 coordinates, as well as our root is at the 0, 0 coordinates. So select your sprite. Let's click on the move tab, or the move button up here, and left click and drag our sprite to the middle of the screen. So I just want to discuss a little bit about the hierarchy and how it works in this engine. So we've created a sprite that's a child of our UI root. So if I select the UI root, you see that the root node is still at 0, 0, and our sprite is where we moved it. So if we select the root and we move the root, guess what? Because the sprite's a child of our root, it's going to go along for the ride. So when we move the UI root, we're also moving the location of the sprite in our display port, as well as if we rotate it. Click on the rotate tab. If we rotate it, the same thing's going to happen. And again, that's because that sprite is a child of our UI root. Okay, so just important to remember that any children of a node are going to go along for the ride. And last but not least is our file system. That's going to show you all the files that are in our UI project in this case, or whichever project that you're creating. And that's pretty much it. That's all the different buttons and menus in the user interface. So you've got a general idea of what all the buttons do, and we'll go into greater detail of how these buttons interact in the next couple of tutorials. I've got a tutorial on the 2D section and a tutorial on the 3D section coming up. So stick with me. We're going to have lots of fun. Hope you learned something, and we'll catch you in the next video.